can stay right where you are, and you can put love into your work and bring holiness into that work. And that really is the message, the Catholic message of both Vatican II and Opus Dei. My favorite teaching of St. Josemaria, the universal call to holiness, that somehow my job is to find holiness and to bring holiness into ordinary circumstances like this one.
There was a man who was born in a small town in Spain at the turn of the last century in 1902. He was the adored child of a devout Catholic family, a loving spiritual family that suffered the death of 3 children and the loss of both their financial and social standing in their community. Despite these hardships, the family of Josemaria Escriva remained close to each other and close to God. 100 years later, on October 6, 2002, that man was canonized by Pope John Paul II. His life and teachings had become an inspiration to hundreds of thousands of people around the world. People who aspire to live the message of Saint Josemaria. People who believe as he did that sanctity, loving and carrying out God's will, is possible for ordinary people. As a young priest, Father Josemaria Escriva felt a deep yearning to do more, to be more. He prayed constantly, striving to understand what God was asking of him. One day, after years of thought and prayer, he saw what God wanted him to do: to proclaim that all people can become saints while living ordinary lives in the world, and that what God asks of each of us is to do just that. Later, he would name the institution he founded to spread this message Opus Dei, the work of God.
His view of Opus Dei was always very much that it's just a little piece of the church. It's the Catholic Church lived in a special way, but really basically just the church.
Josemaria Escriva was a quiet, humble man who had enormous charisma. He was a man of prayer and reflection who spent his life connecting in a profound way with each person he met. And he was always fully present.
What I can tell you about St. Josemaria was that he was a father. He really was a father, and a father with a motherly heart.
If St. Josemaria were here in this room, what would he think?
I think he would be excited that there are people in the work that live and breathe corporate America and don't want to leave it to pursue a life of holiness. Ampersand selected equals comma 6. Within Christianity, there are those who view the pursuit of wealth as sort of an evil. And so you have to be dirt poor and you have to shun technology. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have people who equate business success with a sort of holiness, if you will. It's sort of the prosperity, Christianity. Well, God blesses me because I won this business deal, I think that God, for the most part, stays out of our business. He gives us human talents, and he gives us at times inspiration and insights. But he expects us to work for what we get, and it requires, sacrifice.
There's whole books of the Old Testament that lay down in great detail what can be offered to God and what can't. And he says, I want the lamb that's 1 year old, male, without blemish. I don't want the mangy goat.
It's nested in this grid.
If we're going to say to God, this is the manifestation of my love for you, well, we don't want it to be a mangy goat. We want it to be something as good as we can make it.
I got to play well. If I don't, I can't offer it up. I try to win.
So God understands your intention.
It's just the intention, right? God's a little bit more merciful than the world. The world judges you only by results, and God kind of judges you by effort. It takes tremendous courage and God's grace to follow Catholic orthodoxy. The culture of life is one that embraces life at all stages, one that rejoices over the birth of a baby and doesn't roll its eyes over the nth baby because n-1 was the ideal number. A culture of life is one who loves a person who is aging beyond their normal productive human capacity. 5 fabulous kids. I have a hard time keeping up, probably hear that quite a bit, but they are so full of life and they give so much joy back. They're beyond any expectation that we can have.
I was a crash firefighter. I was stateside here in the high desert, George Air Force Base. Then I went to Korea. That's where I met my wife. We've been married 18 years now, have 4 children. Then after that, I came onto the LA City Fire Department. The cantaloupe, tomatoes, everything just needs to be chopped. I would say the work is kind of my work. I mean, how I fit in to the big scheme of things. And primarily, it's just the ordinary things done well. I have what they call a plan of life. Just like any athlete, they exercise, they eat right, they listen to a coach. Well, I start the day off with the first stop, turning to God. I make a morning offering. After reading the life of Monsignor Escriva and learning of what he had to say about prayer, it's very simple, I think. It's just find quiet time to speak with our Lord. I say the rosary daily. Aspirations, which are basically just invocations to God, almost like a dart sent. We gotta go. We gotta run. Like going into fire, sometimes there's a lot happening, and just, Lord, give me the confidence and the strength to carry out my duties. And let's let everything work out fine. Really giving all of my attention to the task at hand. That have been taught as prayer as well. Just seeing the firemen go by down the street when I was a little kid kind of like just drew me. And the camaraderie with the guys here, the friendships that you make with them. And then working as a team, that's a big thing. If everything goes well, by the end of this year, I should be promoted to captain. So I'm looking forward to that. I've spent 5 years in the U.S. Air Force as a firefighter, and then 17 years now with the City of Los Angeles. So I'm ready to supervise firefighters.
Right down the street, and we make all our ice creams fresh there.
You want to just leave the tray? St. Josemaria would talk about the idea that wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you're there for a reason. You know, God put you there for a reason. And you get to find out what that is. I was very nervous about how my own convictions about my faith, my morals, were going to interact with the craziness of Berkeley. You know, I was like, okay, I want to meet people, I want to make new friends, but how do I make it clear to them that I want to live this way, or that I have these certain beliefs? You know, they're going to think I'm crazy. Problems and whatever, academic, moral. And then slowly, you know, with people I would meet, with the different girls in my dorm, what I've come to realize is that I just want to, when I'm talking to somebody, I just want to say, this is what I believe, and not make any apologies for it. Who needs something, or who, you know, and I found that that's attractive to people.
You've just had a very difficult tragedy in your family life.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what happened.
Almost exactly a year ago, my mother passed away at the age of 49. So, the ripe old age of 49. I remember still getting the call. I was sitting at a Starbucks, actually just over the hill, studying for finals. And, you know, hearing that she was in the hospital, it was a blow. Within a month and a half, she was gone. And it was tough. It was a tough week, it was a tough month, it was a tough year. I was very angry at God. I thought, how could he need her more than we do? Like, what was God thinking? Was he on vacation that day? I got to a point where I wasn't praying. And I just remember sitting in my car one day, just crying, And I had my little Palm Pilot, so it was sort of modern day crying, because I was kind of journaling. I was thinking, like, what is wrong? What's, why aren't things working out? Even just sort of within me. And I thought, there's something missing. And then it kind of dawned on me. I was like, oh, this is what it's like to starve your soul, when you don't pray. And I was like, oh, okay, it's a lot more clear to me now. I remember kind of sitting down and being like, I can't do all this myself. I'd like to think that I can, but I can't, and I need your help. So I just have to give these things to you. And I think that actually took a big load off, to say, like, it's not all my responsibility. I'm going to do what I can do, and then say, okay, you have to take the rest of that.
Oh, this smells so good.
Doesn't it smell good? And a lot of times with St. Josemaria, I think that call to holiness, that universal call to holiness, and I also read that as the universal call to happiness.
She's the executive chef.
That
hot omelet.
through this route, if you want to live a certain way,
This is fabulous.
you will be the most happy that you can be.
Bless us, O Lord.
and these thy gifts which you are about to receive from thy body, through Christ our Lord. Amen.
St. Josemaria would say that God calls us, all Christians, through baptism, and then personally, one by one, he calls us by name. And then, in the midst of our ordinary lives, he calls us again to be women of God and to be men of God.